everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today I'm joined by a wonderful guest.
Hi, I'm Shota from Tank's Green Stuff here in Tucson, Arizona, where we make organic landscape materials, compost, potty mix, and cactus mix, fertilizer, and the like.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about soil. Indoor gardeners oftentimes don't know a lot about what soil is, what it's made of, and why it's important to have healthy soil and all the things. So I asked you guys on Instagram if you had any questions about soil for our resident soil expert here. We compiled the questions and we're going to answer them. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is just what is soil? Because, I mean, we see it, we buy it in bags, but we don't really know what it is. So can you tell us what exactly soil is?
Sure. Soil is constructed of 4 basic parts or 3 basic parts, depending on which way you look at it. 4, it's air, water, minerals, and organic material. And then in 3, it's got a biological, a physical, and a chemical element. And basically, soil is dirt, which is the mineral part, not living. And then you have organic matter, which brings in the living element. And organic matter includes carbon, green waste, kind of wood chips, all that sort of stuff, as well as the biological element of microbes, fungal activity, worms, moles. It all kind of gets put into that category. And then you have the air and water flowing through the soil that makes it a living element. And the earth is actually kind of covered in soil as kind of a skin. So you have a little bit of earth skin in your container, in a sense.
That's great. So there is a difference between dirt and soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
So dirt is dead. So it's generally just the mineral portion, where soil isn't dirt, but dirt is in soil. So it's just the mineral part of it. When you have a pile of dirt, you just kind of have sand, rock, gravel, silt, clay, right? But the soil is that plus organic material, plus water and air to kind of complete the 4 elements of soil.
So soil is a living thing. We like that.
Exactly.
Okay. What makes some soil organic and some not organic?
In a sense, all soil is organic because it's living and it has organic material in it, but organic soil is restricted by having naturally occurring elements and materials in it instead of having things that are chemically created. And so the big difference between an organic certified soil and a non-organic or conventional soil is having chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides in it.
Okay.
Right? And so those man-made combinations of minerals and chemicals and elements added to it makes it non-organic. Although man-made compost or organic material makes it organic. And then obviously there's a lot of kind of gray area on either side of that.
So a lot of people in the soil world, the plant world, will talk about how important drainage is. But I think what gets lost a lot of the time is water retention or moisture retention, because we're so focused on getting the water through, but we're scared to let it sit there for a second. So can you, how do we balance that? What's a good way to balance that?
Well, it really starts with your soil. So a good soil blend that's suited to your plant's needs and the environment makes a huge difference. So something like a cactus, you really want really well draining soil with pockets of moisture. And so having something like coconut coir or pumice, which really allows a lot of drainage but holds water in areas, it has a higher porosity, which kind of allows you to have a balance, an easy to use balance, where it just, the water goes right through, you're not having it settle and pool, but the coco coir is creating pockets of moisture and there's plenty of aeration.
Okay.
And then on the other hand, you have something like a potty mix where they want a little bit more water in the soil. So you have something like the coco peat or a denser soil blend, not using pumice and using perlite to kind of allow more water to sit in the soil but still have fairly good drainage.
And it's about understanding your plant and really observing them over the course of, the first couple of weeks after you plant them, because some people wrote in and said, I realize my soil is way too well draining, and that's happened to me too. So, I mean, it's just kind of, when it's a new plant, you have to sort of mess around and experiment.
And where you have it in your house or in your yard also makes a difference on whether or not that works. If you have something in a high heat area, then you can really use a lot denser soil because the water is going to get used up and dry out a lot faster.
That's true. That's true. Let's talk about nutrients. So what kind of nutrients is actually in soil?
You have your basics, your NPK, that's your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium. Those are the big three that you'll see on any bag. And those are the big feeders, especially nitrogen is probably the most popular one. You have a series of other micronutrients like sulfur and calcium, and then you have your chelates like iron, magnesium, nickel, copper, and so on. And so you kind of have that in a 3-tier level. You have your NPKs, your calcium, and your sulfur, and then you have your supporting casts down at the bottom being your kind of chelates and metals.
Okay, and those ingredients are also in fertilizer as well, because that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of those are very common in fertilizer. Like our Super Mix organic fertilizer has an NPK of 221, which is very mild. And then we also boast about our fertilizer that has a blend of other trace minerals, and those would be kind of your chelates at the end. But then we also knowingly add things like calcium, and there's sulfur in the compost that we use, the elemental sulfur, to make sure that it's well balanced and you have a full spectrum. And that's the case for a lot of organic fertilizers, or a lot of conventional agricultural fertilizers or houseplants really just focus on having a heavy chemical nitrogen. So it's a plant available nitrogen that you just kind of add to the soil and the plants take up.
Okay.
Where organic fertilizers tend to have an element of microbial and fungal support, because those are kind of the workers in the soil that take the nutrients from the soil and into the plants.
Would you say that organic fertilizer is better long term then?
Exactly. So organic fertilizers tend to be a long-term soil building solution where it's designed not for today, but for today, tomorrow, and next month.
Okay.
Where conventional fertilizers tend to be a quick hit, let's juice it today and give the plants just that nitrogen kick. Like our fertilizer, aside from having like worm castings and back guano, has things like biochar, humus, humic acid, things like that to cultivate and develop beneficial microbes and fungal activity in the soil for long-term soil health.
And that's the goal here, is to keep our
Exactly.
plants because then you see long-term and consistent growth.
And the other thing about that, I guess we could just kind of get into the microbes and the fungi of it all. They do a lot more than just break down the soil. They break down the soil, and then the plants produce sugars from the sun and feed that to the microbes. In exchange, the microbes basically cater to the plant's needs, bringing them nitrogen or potassium or phosphorus or calcium or whatever it may be. And then the microbes also create microbiomes around the root zone, which help buffer pH. So I know we had a question about pH. So pH is one of those things that I'm not sure how and why it's important to houseplants, because in most cases, like here in Arizona, everything is alkaline. There's just no way around it. Everything we use, everything that's local, is an alkaline product. So having a healthy microbiology in the soil helps buffer the root zone from the pH of the soil and kind of creates a microclimate along the roots to match the pH that the plant would like and require.
Okay, let me try to understand. So pH isn't necessarily important for houseplants, but what's important is to have the fungi and
Exactly.
what did you call them? Microorganisms along, and that will make a buffer.
Yeah, and that will create
Like
a
a
buffer
filter.
zone to essentially buffer the pH.
Okay, let's talk about how to identify good soil and bad soil. How can you tell that your personal soil is good or bad?
Okay, so there's a couple ways you can take good or bad. Good or bad is kind of purpose. If it's good for what you're using or bad for what you're using it for. The other part of good or bad soil is good soil is, for a lot of applications, is well composted. So there's a lot of soil products out there that tend to be high in carbon. And the reason high in carbon is bad is because it throws off your carbon and nitrogen ratio. And in order for your plants to break down carbon, they hold on to nitrogen. So it creates a nitrogen robbing effect. And so a lot of the big box store products out there will be really high in carbon because it's not properly or fully composted. So it's kind of really woody. They adjust for that by adding a chemical nitrogen fertilizer. So they kind of dose it with an extra bit of nitrogen to balance out the nitrogen lost by the microbes holding on to it to break down the excess carbon.
Okay.
And so that's one way soil can be bad. Another way is that because it is purely just organic material and doesn't have good structure, so it doesn't have the minerals, the organic material, the biologicals in it, you can either have a poor performing soil because there's just not enough beneficial microbes in it, or you can have a soil that is breaking down too quickly and not maintaining its soil structure, so you end up having the soil collapse and then
Yeah.
it kind of collapses on your root zone, and then you get root rot, and that can be bad.
Okay, that was a question that someone had, is why, like, where does soil go? Because sometimes you'll notice that as your plant lives on, like, there's less and less soil, so people wonder, like, are the roots eating it? Like, is it disintegrating? Like, so it's compacting.
So yeah, a couple of things is every time you drain it, you are adding water weight to it or increasing the bulk density of the soil, making it heavier and allowing it to compact. And also every time you're watering it, you're pulling out little bits and pieces of the soil element and kind of disrupting it in a beneficial factor, because you shouldn't really say disrupting it, because disrupting it means like you're digging in it, where water is really part of the healthy soil, where it's, when water goes in, it's pulling air through the soil and aerating. But basically, yeah, so it's just compacting, decomposing, or composting, and settling.
Okay.
So if you have something that's really rich in just organic material, mostly like wood chips or partially composted wood chips or fine grindings, then it's going to break down really quickly. And so that's why we always like to recommend using other materials like coco coir, pumice, perlite, even native soil or clay, things that aren't going to break down and degrade quickly, allowing the soil to maintain its structure. And that's another part of that as well, is to reduce that compaction, it's important to have that good soil structure, the good air to water ratio for porosity, and then your physical elements of your clay, silt, sand, which in like a potting mix or indoor houseplant mix is really just kind of your fine compost, your pumice or your perlite, your cocoa chip, or your orchid bark or something, you know, to give you good structure and stability, as well as your fungal activity. Fungi produce a protein which basically acts like a glue to hold that soil structure together. If you have all these elements in your soil, then you have a good soil. It's not going to compact and decompose as quickly.
So it compacts because it's decomposing.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, question. Just off the cuff, what are your thoughts on aerating your own soil, like on your own? Like, because I know you said water will aerate the soil, but what do you think about people like sticking a chopstick in the soil and like making holes? And
generally speaking, you shouldn't disturb the soil as best you can, because when you're disturbing the soil, you're breaking apart the fungi, the fungal colonies and the microbes, and disturbing it. The activities of your microbiology also helps introduce air. Sure, it's kind of a quick and easy way to get the soil aerated, but the soil should be designed to be naturally aerated when you water it by just kind of the flow.
Okay.
Right? And so I would say generally no, I don't recommend that.
If you have the right soil, you shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where it kind of starts. But if you need to do that because it's really not draining, then go ahead and do that, and then go online or call us and buy some decent soil.
That's your wake-up call.
Yeah.
I suppose that's like really something for me that I'm learning from you, like in this moment, is because I always thought that was like a very normal thing, and like I've promoted doing that, possibly because definitely because I didn't have the right soil for so long, and like I felt the need to do that. And, well, also because partially it's because the water here is so hard that it makes like a hardened layer. So sometimes I'll just like disturb the top. Sure. So I guess if you have the right soil, there's no need to like poke a chopstick or a knitting needle all the way down. Yeah. Okay.
That being said, it is a commonly used solution in a lot of agricultural and turf settings, so it's not unheard of. It's just ideally you shouldn't have to do it. Just in most cases, especially houseplants, it's a lot easier if you don't disturb it, because your soil volume and area is so small to begin with, so your microbiology and your fungal activity is so sensitive to begin with, because there's not a whole bunch of supporting folks out here. It's all just right here.
Yeah. Let's talk about soil expiration. So there were a lot of questions about, does soil expire? When do I know when my soil is depleted? Can I reuse soil? What does sanitizing soil look like? So I'm throwing a lot at you in one go. But
All right, well, we'll see what we can do about it. In theory, soil will never expire. It's something that's ongoing. It's a living organism. And as long as it's fed and maintained, it will continue to live on. And by feeding it, I mean adding organic material, microbes, fungal activity, making sure everybody's happy. Yes, you could have a container or a houseplant where the soil is depleted or is dead. You can either add more compost to it, you can add some organic fertilizer to it, you can add microbiology to it. There's a lot of organic soil products out there that can bring soil back to life. Because ideally you have a nice soil blend to start off with. And so your soil, although depleted, still has some coco coir in it, some perlite in it, or some pumice or vermiculite, some goodies in it. And all it's really missing is the nutrients that was taken up by the plants, the organic matter that was broken down and compacted. And so you can replace and replenish all those things in the soil and bring a soil back to life.
So it can die, but it's not, like, it can be resuscitated.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's one thing that is really hard once it kind of dies, it's dead, and that's peat moss. Once it dries out, especially here in Arizona, you can't get it to hydrate and stay hydrated to the same extent that you can something like coco peat or coco chip.
Okay.
And so we really don't like to use it for that being one. There's a lot of other reasons. Actually, I noticed this the other day. I went to my buddy's house and he asked me to water his basil plant because he's out of town. And I went and looked at the basil plant. The basil plant's doing okay, but the soil had dried out. And so I start watering it. I know immediately there's peat in it because the water is running right through it and it's not maintaining its moisture. It's not coming back to life. Which reminds me, I should probably go over there today and water his plant because he's got peat in it. Yeah, maybe change this. That's a good idea. I should take some over there and just swap it out because that's not doing him any favors.
What is the difference between peat moss and coco peat? Because Tanks doesn't use peat moss.
Right. So peat moss is a fossil product. So it's thousands and thousands of years old and it is mined. So basically they go in the peat bogs and dig it up, package it, put it on a truck, right? Coco peat has the same texture and consistency and acts as a similar product, mostly for water holding capacity and texture, but it's a byproduct of the coconut water and cocoa jelly, basically the coconut industry. So for the most part, in years past, coconut coir, once the fruit and the meat and the water has been harvested, gets landfilled or pushed into the sea. So it is a sustainable byproduct of that industry and is basically a recycled material in itself. And a plus side, coco peat lasts about 2 to 3 times longer than peat moss, despite having to be shipped from overseas. It's just, you're not digging into the thousands and thousands of years old peat bogs, which they're not a whole lot of anymore. So yeah, we really like it, and we find that out here in the desert, like I was saying, that you can rehydrate coco peat and it's not going to do anything to the plant or the soil, and you can just keep using it over and over, and it lasts a really long time. We've really loved using it. We're partnered with Pro Coco. They're actually based here in Tucson too.
The next question that a lot of people asked was, how do you sterilize soil and what are the implications of doing so?
So why are people sterilizing soil?
I feel so scripted. So
I want to kind of ask you why people sterilize it. Or you can ask me that and I'll ask you back why they're doing it. We'll go from there.
Just like how it happened before.
Yeah.
Okay.
But seriously, why are they doing it?
Personally, I would sterilize soil if I felt it was infested with fungus gnats, because that has happened before. Like, I will open a bag and then I will pot a plant and then it'll get fungus gnats immediately. And I'm like, well, this doesn't seem like a coincidence. I would say that would be a reason. So if there is like a fungus gnat, maybe soil mites, because I think there's a lot of mystery around soil mites. People aren't really sure if they're good or bad or scary or if they should be worried.
And they're also very hard to identify, which I get. But yeah, it's not bad to sterilize your soil. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. Is if you're sterilizing for a reason, especially if you're having a pest like fungus gnats or soil mites and you're not sure if they're aphids, there's nothing wrong with sterilizing it. Obviously the cheapest, easiest way to sterilize soil is to open up the bag, spread it out in a plantain bucket or something, and leave it out in the sun for a couple days and flip it out. Basically what you're doing is, the bugs like it because it's an ideal environment. And when you put it out in the sun, it's no longer an ideal environment. It's losing its moisture and it's kind of becoming dead in a sense. At least for the whatever pests you might have. As a result, you're also disturbing and killing and destroying all your fungal colonies and all your microbiology. And so, although it's the cheapest and easiest way to do it, you are really knocking your soil back a couple months. And so it will take upwards of a month to 2 months for that soil microbiology and that fungal activity to repopulate in your soil.
So it'll take that long if you are also fertilizing, or just like if you leave it alone?
That's kind of just on more of a natural scale. First of all, make sure that the soil is staying hydrated. Whether or not you're planting it or not, maintain that moisture, because that soil is, in a sense, if you got good soil, then it's inoculated with the microbiology. Hit it hard and fast with some new microbiology. We sell a product called Back to Feed Soil Conditioner, which is basically, it's a dry powder. You add it to water, you aerate it. Basically, it has food and microbes in it, and after 24 hours, the microbes are breaking down the food and repopulating. We use it in our compost to inoculate our windrows to get them going really fast. Adding something like our Super Mix organic fertilizer, which has things like biochar, mycorrhizates, and a whole bunch of other goodies and tasty goodness that the microbes will break down and consume. And so you can take all these steps to really ramp it up and speed it up, but usually you're looking at, 1 to 2 months before that soil is going to be back to a healthy level of microbial activity.
Okay.
Oh, so the alternative to doing that, right?
Yeah.
Because either way, you're having an issue, and either way, in theory, to do it most successfully, you have to spend money. So either you're spending money on microbial solutions, soil conditioners, compost, and super mix, which in theory you should already be doing because that's what you should be putting on your plants. The other side of it is you can avoid putting that stuff out in the sun by using something like neem oil, or some people use like soap or olive oil. There's a lot of other organic home remedies that you can use to target whatever specific pest you have.
To sterilize the soil that way.
Right, and not necessarily sterilize it, but specifically, go after just the one thing instead of pulling the soil out and disturbing it. So Arbico Organics is a great company.
Yes,
Have you
I
heard
just
of them?
ordered from them. Yeah.
They're so awesome. So I started working with Arbico when I was working at the pecan orchards down south, and they are big on sending out, they sell and they'll ship you boxes and boxes of IPM, so integrated pest management. So they'll send you like lace wings and things like that.
Oh, really?
Or they'll sell you like fly killers that go after fly larvae, and they'll just basically their business, their big part of their business is sending out bugs to attack other bugs, which is really cool. But they also sell all kinds of other organic pest control and herbicide stuff. If you got some bugs out there, it just means you're creating an ideal environment for your plants, and an ideal environment for plants is same for the bugs. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Our environment is like awesome for them because it's always warm. There's organic material, like
right. There's great places to hide, good food.
Yeah, I'm there. Like
Exactly.
I'm in. If I was a pest, I think I'd be scale though.
Yeah.
Because they just they armor up and then they just don't move.
That's a pretty smart system right there.
Yeah, like they don't, they're almost indestructible. So.
Yeah.
Oh, can you use outdoor potting mix for indoor plants? No.
Not really.
No. Okay. Why?
Mostly because it has to do with the soil design. Generally speaking, an outdoor potting mix is going to be denser, right? And is going to cause root rot in an indoor setting, because the outdoor potting mix is designed to have more heat, so more water holding capacity. Realistically speaking, you want to get a soil that's best matched for houseplants. In the past, if someone wanted to plant indoor plants, right, I wouldn't recommend just our potting mix, and I wouldn't just recommend our cactus mix.
Yeah.
So if someone has something that's not a cactus or succulent and wants to plant something indoors, then generally I would recommend buy a bag of our cactus and succulent mix, buy a bag of our potting mix, and blend them together to kind of create a little bit of a better suited soil for inside, because it's the coco peat in the potting mix holds too much moisture for inside. The coco chip in the cactus mix doesn't have enough soil density, moisture holding capacity for a lot of houseplants inside.
Yeah,
so
that's a common...
Put the two together
and
blend things to get it to where it works.
Yeah, that's a really common thing in houseplants, is knowing which soil to use. And most of our houseplants are aroid, so they need a lot of the similar things. And I mean, as I've mentioned in previous videos, we are working on making a soil blend for houseplants.
Oh yeah.
And it's really exciting. We're currently in the testing process of 5 different mixes. I just repotted the plants.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How did they all feel?
It was good. You can definitely, the one that we made more compost.
Yeah.
It did not drain very well.
Right.
You could just tell the water just sat at the top. Which you guys will be seeing this later on. But I mean, it was just really interesting.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite so far from just the repotting?
I think C was pretty good.
Okay.
A was also good. All in all, it's either A or C, I think.
Okay.
But all of them drained well besides B.
Okay. I know, I think we made B to be specifically dense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a whole process that
Yeah.
we are working on, and I'm really excited because, I don't know, you have to buy more things to make something, and it ends up costing so much more.
Right, and then the other thing, you have
work.
to have like a big bag of pumice, big bag of cocoa, this, that, the other, and that happens a lot with a lot of folks. You just, doing custom stuff is great, but sometimes it can be more costly and have a lot of stuff lying around.
Okay, so the last question we have is, what is the best way to store soil to keep bugs out? Because we know it's an ideal environment, but we don't want that necessarily.
So if it's something you're going to be using in the short term, I recommend just keeping it wet and hydrated and planting it as soon as you can. Now, if it's something that you're like, okay, I can't use this until I go and spend a bunch of other money on more plants or until the next planting season, then you want to keep it in the bag that it is. You want to seal it up good. So maybe roll down the top, put it in a bucket with a lid. Make sure that it has adequate moisture but it doesn't have too much. Put it in a dry, cool place so there's not a lot of moisture kind of trying to penetrate, and it should be fine. Chances are the worst things that are going to happen is either you're going to get a pest or you're going to get a lot of sweet fungal growth. And the fungal growth, for the most part, is totally harmless and is super beneficial. And the pesticides as well. You know, we talked about how you can deal with that. But that's the best way to store soil.
You don't want to store it in direct sun though, right?
Yeah.
That'll cause it to...
Right. And the other big thing is most of the time you put something in direct sun, the plastic bag will break and you'll just end up with plastic chunks in your soil.
Oh,
so
that's not good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And then when you go pick it up, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Which I've done a lot. So yeah, try to put it somewhere where it's not sunny and make sure the bag is strong and secure.
Okay, cool. Well, that wraps up today's conversation, but actually from your guys' questions, I have ideas for at least 4 more videos.
Okay.
And if you're not already, you can go ahead and check out Tank's Green Stuff on Instagram. They have a lot of really informative posts, and obviously we're working together on a project. Thanks for being here and educating all of us and just being a good plant friend.
Well, no problem. Well, we appreciate it and look forward to seeing everybody in another episode.
Yeah.
Did you call them episodes?
I don't know.
Okay.
Video? I don't know.
All right.
I guess, like, this could be a series.
Yeah. That works.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of my soil series with Tank's Green Stuff.
All right.
That's what it is now.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Oh, wait. Also, if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, anything you want more in-depth descriptions of or explanations, we'll make more videos. So
yeah, just comment below.
Yeah, comment below and let us know. Okay, now for real. Bye.
Bye.